So I'm sitting here, the air is blasting in a brand new Tesla Model 3. This is the refresh Model 3. This particular one is a rear-wheel drive, but it's in the stealth gray, which is cool. I got the seat adjusted, got everything set up. So far, first impressions, it is almost exactly the same as what you're used to in a Model 3, except the buttons. The steering wheel, there's no stock. So that's really the main difference, and the door. Now, I've heard people talk about the buttons on the door, buttons on the steering wheel, how they're different. They're like the Model S, Model X. They are and they aren't. So let me show you what I'm talking about. When you look at the door, this doesn't act, it has a push. So it actually has a little bit of an actual button on it. Now, on the steering wheel, it also does the same thing. So you can see it kind of pushes in, and that's for all the buttons here. So interesting, it is different, but what's also nice about this, there's the horn. It's finally right back here where it belongs. So really the only thing, in my opinion, that you're gonna have to get used to is the turn signals. That is it. The gear shift is all done on the screen when you put your foot on the brake. This is now up here like it is in the S and the X. But when you put your foot on the brake, you can see your gear selection then pops up, and you can go in forward, you can go in reverse, you can also go into neutral by pressing and holding, and of course, park. Now for park, you either have to go with your foot on the brake, you can just press park. Also, if your foot is not on the brake, you can't just press it. You got to press and hold. So kind of like a safety thing. Anyways, that is how you put this thing in park and drive and all those things. So let's get rolling on that. I only have about 23 minutes left. They were very firm on that, so we need to get moving. Everything here looks and feels about the same as before. It's just the screen is even better than it was. It works really, really well. So if we go through all the screens, I mean, it's just fast. As soon as you hit it, you get what you want, which is great. And looking at the car, it is, again, a rear-wheel drive. This one has 444 miles on it. It is charged at 100%. And that equates to 272 miles. So let's get this thing on the road, because there's quite a bit that's different in this car, and the suspension is also different. So it should drive quite a bit better. Let's find out if it's quieter, rides better, all of that. All right, also a real quick note, I just put my phone on the charger and it starts charging right away, which is really nice. Don't have to really mess with it, move it around to get it to start charging. So the wireless charging there is definitely a little bit better than before. All right, couple of things I noticed right away. First and foremost, this thing is quiet. It is super quiet in here. It is so quiet in here. No sounds, so much quieter. Now I'm only doing 25 miles an hour, so we'll get this thing up to speed and see how it is on the highway, but I cannot hear anything outside, which is really nice. And then the other thing that I noticed right away is also the suspension. You can feel as you go over the bumps in the road, it's definitely softer than it was before. So let's wait for this light to turn green and we'll get up to speed. I am gonna head over to the highway and we'll get up to highway speeds if we have the time. Actually, let's take a detour.
I'd like to take a moment to thank today's video sponsor, Delete Me. You may not realize this, but there are data brokers out there who are constantly mining and selling your private information. And although it's not always nefarious, it can lead to some pretty uncomfortable situations. Just recently, somebody actually doxed me, and it was pretty uncomfortable. It was very eye-opening and somewhat scary. And before CES 2024, I decided to give Delete Me a try, submitted my information, and in about 7 days, I got my first report. Delete Me reviewed 940 listings, had 89 listings removed, identified 57 data brokers with my personal information, and found 476 listings that included my personal information. So how this works. First, you submit your information. Experts search for that information. They then process removal requests for all these places it pops up, and then they continue to scan and submit for deletions all throughout the year. Now, of course, you can provide specific locations you want your information removed, but Delete Me identifies many places your data can be sold and facilitates all the work on your behalf. Delete Me continues to monitor these sites and repeats removal requests as they appear. Now, Delete Me has extended an offer of 20% off for all of my viewers by using code BTG. You can also click the link in the description, joindeleteme.com/BTG, and it'll automatically apply that discount for you. So thanks again to Delete Me for sponsoring today's video.
All right, so heading out on this road, we can do about 55 miles an hour out here. Acceleration feels very much the same as it was before. Gets up to speed great. It is super quiet in here. I cannot get over how much quieter this car is than it was before. I know it sounds kind of repetitive, but yeah, that is a vast improvement. So I'm gonna take, I think, a left right here and try to find my way to the highway. Everything else though is very much what you would be used to in the Model 3. It feels like the Model 3, it looks like the Model 3, it kind of drives like the Model 3. Still sit kind of low to the ground. The seats are very comfortable. I would not say that they're more comfortable than they were before, but they're certainly not less comfortable. So good job on the seats. They are slightly different, but the nice thing about these seats is they are cooled seats. And if you live in a warm climate, these cooled seats are clutch. So if you have cooled seats, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what you're missing out on. But you still have the other convenience features like a heated steering wheel, heated seats, front and back. And then these front two seats are cooled, of course. I also like the ambient lights. That's just a fun thing, especially at night. It actually looks pretty slick. But you can do unlimited customizations on what color these lights are because they are LED, which is cool. But if you want more of a purple, a blue, a red, it's all right there. That's always fun. You can also do a bit of a white color, but that's boring. So I'm thinking red is the color of the day, and here we go. You can also control now the footwell lights, and previously the standard range Model 3, or what is now called the rear wheel drive Model 3, did not have ambient lights on the floor in the front, which was really frustrating. It was very dark in here, but this car has definitely added a lot of features for visibility, both on the inside and the outside. The lights are definitely an upgraded setup where you get a lot more visibility, and the mirrors are pretty much the same. Visibility on the outside is about the same as it was before, so nothing new there. But man, this thing definitely feels sporty. And you got to remember, this is the crazy thing, it's hard to explain to people who have never been in a Tesla just how fast they are. Like, this is the slowest Tesla that they make, and it is so much better, faster than most cars out there. So even the slow one is no slouch by any means, and that's always so much fun. There's no way I'm gonna have time to make it all the way to the highway. So what I'm gonna do, all these other roads out here are 55 miles an hour, so we're just gonna stick to those for now, I guess. Try to find some roads that have not been repaved recently. Try to get some bumps and feel that suspension a little bit more. Nice acceleration. It is so quiet in here. It is butter smooth suspension. If you are coming from a Model 3, you need to test drive this thing because you're going to be blown away like right away. There is not a single rattle in here either, which is pretty wild. Usually you'll have a rattle or two here or there. And again, the cheapest, slowest Tesla that they make. And I think it's pretty awesome. And here's some train tracks, nothing. No drama at all over these railroad tracks. Pretty wild. Thing is butter smooth, no sounds, nothing rattling around. And back to acceleration. This is not a fresh road. You can start to hear a little bit of the road noise, but it is so much quieter than before, and it just wants to drive. These cars just want to drive so fast, which is always fun. Efficiency is the other thing that this particular car gains. Now, the range on this is actually the same as it was before, but the car is actually more efficient. The range on this car was EPA tested to the new standard, and it matched its old range number on the old standard that they were using. So actually range technically went down, but it's the same because of the efficiency gains that they were able to implement in this car. Some of the things that they did with this car is they removed some weight, they added some new wheels, new tires, all those things to add to the efficiency of the car. All of that put together, this car is going to be more efficient, and that's how they were able to at least match the numbers that they had before, which is obviously a good thing. Now, it would be nice if they were able to improve it, but if you were to look at this car on the old standard, this thing would probably be closer to something like 300 miles rated. But I think this is a good thing. We need to continue to move towards a more realistic approach to how we're rating cars, electric cars, as people are getting into them. They're not used to the way that what the sticker says the range will be versus what they actually get. Now, I've seen a couple of tests recently where somebody drove the car and went from 100% to 0 or whatever and got very, very close to what the rated range was on the car. I think it was a long range. So these are definitely getting much closer to the rated range that the car is versus what they were doing before, which is a good thing. We need to continue to move towards that. And this new standard seems to be good, seems to be the right approach to getting these Teslas closer to what they're rated for. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes now, and there's a couple of observations that I have other than it just driving better, smoother, quieter, which is all good things. There are some other things on the other side, and I want to point those out now because I'm starting to notice them. So first, you got to understand the entire intent of this car, the refresh Model 3, was focused on reducing cost. So Tesla went anywhere and everywhere that they could to lower the cost of building this car, help to bring prices down, or in this case, maintain prices and grow margin. And there are some areas where you can see that. First and foremost, right up front in the dash, it's not as nice as it was before. It is a new look, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it, but it looks a little bit cheap. This fabric up here, I don't know what the deal is with it. It'd probably have been better if they just left it one material, because this looks kind of weird. It looks like they tried to make it look a little bit fancier, but it doesn't look right, in my opinion. From a fit and finish, I'm also seeing some mismatch here and there, especially up here on the dash where the doors and the dash meet, certainly where the ambient lights are. They're not level, and that's pretty typical of Tesla. Now, the difference is it's not rattling. So yes, there's some mismatch here, but everything feels tight. It's not just the performance of the car that feels tight, but the materials inside of the car. And all these materials inside of this car are built to help reduce sound. So we've got dual pane glass all the way around this car, and some of these other materials are also sound deadening as well, which helps with that very noticeable improvement in road noise. I also appreciate the way that this center console gives you some more flexibility, but it feels pretty cheap. These doors are very, very plasticky compared to what they were before. Now, they do operate smoothly, which is great, but you know, there's some texture on it, which is nice, but you can't overcome, it's a very hollow type of plastic, and it doesn't feel nice. You also have very clearly two different speeds on these doors. You have a nice smooth closing in the front half, and then this cup holder, bam, closes really fast. Not really a big deal, but an observation nonetheless. And then looking here under the armrest, I have a USB-C down here, and that 12 volt that used to be here is now up here in the front half of the center console. There's a light down here I can feel. I don't feel USB-Cs down here. So we had two USB-Cs up here before. Now we have one, and now it's under the armrest. The 12 volt now has been moved under the center console. So a couple of little changes there to move things around. No big deal. The phone charger works flawlessly with my iPhone. No fumbling around to get it to recognize that it's on there and start charging. Also, the blind spot monitors, I really appreciate. I wish this was something that Tesla had all this time, because it takes some time to get used to trusting the car, knowing, but with these little indicators, they're very small, it's very obvious and red and bright right there. Very obvious that your blind spot is occupied with a car, and that is very appreciated, especially these days. Every car, it seems, has blind spot monitors, especially at this price point. Everything else is the standard Tesla experience in here. There's nothing really crazy or out of the norm that I'm noticing that, yeah, you would get in this car, and it would be the same experience as a driver as it would be in the previous Model 3. So it's not like a learning curve to get in this. The screen is laid out exactly the same as it was before, just a little bit zappier, a little bit quicker response time, and you have the added functionality of some of the other features in this car, including the screen in the back, which if you have kids, that's pretty awesome. Having that screen back there, we use it all the time in the Model X, and it's pretty nice because you can stream right there on that screen while you're driving. Okay, so before we start talking about some of the other things, let's recap the driving experience. This, compared to the previous Model 3, smoother, quieter, feels more connected, feels more put together, more solid, so to speak. Not a bunch of rattles, doesn't feel loose anywhere. It is a solid built car, and you can feel it in how it drives. Of course, the standard range comes in at the same price as it was previously at $38,990, and for $45,990, you can get the long range at, I think it's 342 miles of range now, EPA. And those are pretty respectable numbers because those are on the new EPA cycle, meaning these cars are rated a little bit lower than they were before for the same car, the same battery, the same motors. All that is the same. So actually having a 272 mile rear wheel drive is actually, on the previous cycle, probably a bit more than 272. So it's not the same range as it was before. It's actually a little bit better, and it is because there are a lot of improvements to the aerodynamics, these wheel covers, the tires themselves, the weight of the car. All those things went into making this a more efficient car, get you a little bit more range for the money. Now, if you're in a Model Y and you still want to stay in a Model Y, which I highly recommend, it is the best Tesla that you can buy today. That car is going to get these refresh updates very soon. We expect that later this year, and it's going to look basically like this, just in the Model Y platform. Just the same as the Model Y is different from the Model 3 today, the refresh will be the same setup. So it'll be a little bit different in size, but overall basically the same kind of features, screen in the back, cooled seats, and some upgraded sound deadening, which will be all very nice to have in the Model Y. And of course, hopefully that suspension is also tuned just a little bit nicer as well. If you're in a Model Y today, should you upgrade to a Model 3? Well, if you don't have family, maybe. It's a pretty comfortable car, and it is a nice driving experience. But you could also wait just a little bit longer and get the Model Y in the refresh configuration, which is probably going to be more worth it. And the fact that today it qualifies for the full tax credit, is very likely that the refresh will also qualify for the full tax credit, meaning you can get a Model Y cheaper than you can get in a Model 3. Now, that said, there is one car missing from this upgrade that is very obvious, and that is the Performance Model 3. Where did it go? What happened? Well, we're not exactly sure what the delay is all about, but there are a number of leaks that have come out showing new seats. You're going to have potentially a plaid nomenclature rather than performance, which is really cool. We don't know what that performance is going to be yet, and that'll be very exciting to see very soon. That might qualify for the tax credit because the Performance Model 3 today gets its batteries from Nevada versus these, which do not. Those Nevada batteries are qualified for the tax credit. So that plaid Model 3, Performance Model 3, when it does come, could qualify, meaning it could be cheaper than a long-range Model 3. So something to really think about. That should be coming very soon, certainly sooner than the Model Y refresh is coming out. So I would expect right in the summertime that Performance or plaid Model 3 should be here too. And as long as it gets at least or better performance than it did before, which I would assume it'll get better, it's going to be hard to beat. The Model 3 Performance is already an incredible package for a performance car for that price. Hard to beat that price for that kind of acceleration. The refresh is going to be no exception. So let me know in the comments, what are you thinking? Are you going to make the switch? Are you going to upgrade from a 3 to a refresh 3? Or are you thinking about trading in your Model Y for a refresh Model 3? I don't think you can really go wrong either way. I personally am holding out for the refresh Model Y, and I think that might be time to make the switch from our old reliable Model Y. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that this was helpful. I can't wait to catch you on the next one.